Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Sarosh and I am a foundation level student at Rehan School Life at Campus Islamabad, and today I am doing my ChatGPT and my topic is whatever. So let's start it. Hello ChatGPT, can you listen me?
Yes, I can definitely listen. Hi, Sarosh. I'm here and ready to help with your topic on whatever. Just let me know what you need, whether it's brainstorming, organizing your thoughts, or practicing your delivery. I'm ready to jump in.
Okay ChatGPT, today I have some questions for you. Can we start it?
Of course, go ahead and ask your questions whenever you're ready, and I'll do my best to give you clear, helpful answers.
So ChatGPT, my first question is that what does the word whatever really mean?
Great question. So, whatever is a pretty flexible word in English. It can be used casually to mean anything at all, like pick whatever you like, or it can be a bit dismissive, as in whatever, I don't care. So, the meaning really depends on how it's used in context. Does that help clarify a bit?
So ChatGPT, my next question is that why do people say whatever in conversation?
Yeah, that's a really common one. People often say whatever when they're feeling indifferent. Maybe they don't want to argue or they just don't have a strong opinion. Sometimes it's a way of brushing something off, like, yeah, whatever you think. It's kind of a shortcut in conversation to avoid conflict or just keep things moving.
So ChatGPT, my next question is that is whatever a sign of indifference?
Yeah, it definitely can be. When someone says whatever in a conversation, it often signals that they just don't care that much about the outcome or they're not invested in the discussion. So it can be a sign of indifference, but it could also just be a relaxed or fatigued response. Context really matters.
So ChatGPT, my next question is that can whatever express frustrations?
Absolutely. Yeah, people sometimes use whatever when they're feeling frustrated or fed up, like, whatever, I give up. It can be a kind of verbal shrug, just a way of signaling that they're done with the situation or don't see a point anymore. So it definitely can carry that tone.
So ChatGPT, my next question is that does tone change the meaning of whatever?
Yeah, it does. The tone behind whatever really shifts its meaning. So if it's said casually, it can just be open or neutral. But if it's said with a sigh or a sharp tone, it can feel dismissive, annoyed, or even like a put down. So the emotional context really changes how we interpret it.
So my next question is that one is whatever harmful and when it is rude.
That's a great point. So, whatever isn't harmful by itself, but it can come across as rude if it's used to dismiss someone's feelings or shut down a conversation. For example, if someone is trying to share something important and you just say whatever, it can feel pretty dismissive or uncaring. So, it's really about how it's used and the context.
So ChatGPT, my next question is that why do people use whatever instead of explaining feelings?
Yeah, that's really common. Sometimes people just don't have the words to explain how they feel, or maybe they feel overwhelmed, and whatever is kind of a quick, easier out. It's like a default when someone doesn't want to dive into deeper emotions, so it's a kind of emotional shortcut.
Okay, ChatGPT, that's a great answer. So tell me that is whatever emotional avoidance?
Yeah, it can be. A lot of times people use whatever as a way to avoid getting into a more vulnerable emotional state. Instead of saying how they really feel, whether it's frustration, sadness, or uncertainty, they just brush it off. So, yeah, it can be a form of emotional avoidance depending on the situation.
Okay, my next question is that can whatever sometimes mean acceptance?
Yeah, absolutely. In some cases, whatever can show a kind of calm acceptance, like when you let go of control and you just say, whatever, it is what it is. In that sense, it can mean you're okay with the outcome, even if you don't have strong feelings about it. So, context is key again.
So ChatGPT, my next question is that why is the word so powerful despite being simple?
Ooh, that's a really interesting point. I think it's powerful because it's so versatile. It can shift its tone, meaning, and intention depending on who says it and how. So even though it's just one word, it taps into this big range of emotions indifference, frustration, acceptance, which gives it a kind of quiet power in conversation.
Okay, ChatGPT, my next question is that where did the expression whatever originate?
Good question. So, whatever as a word has been around for a really long time, tracing back to Old English roots, actually. But the casual dismissive use, especially as a teen or millennial slang, kind of took off in the 20th century. So, it evolved with culture and media, becoming this go to word for indifference or acceptance.
Okay, ChatGPT, my next question is that did movies or pop culture influence its rise?
Oh, definitely. Pop culture really gave whatever a boost. Especially in the 90s with teen movies and shows, it became this iconic, exasperated catchphrase. So a lot of people picked it up from TV, film, and just everyday media, which really shaped how it's used today.
So tell me that how has the meaning changed over time?
Yeah, so originally, whatever was pretty neutral, just a way to mean any option or lack of preference. But over time, especially through casual speech and media, it took on these other layers, like indifference, frustration, or even rebellion. And now it's this really flexible term that can signal so many different emotional tones depending on how it's used.
So ChatGPT was whatever always linked to indifference.
Not always. Early on, it was just a very neutral functional word, like just meaning anything or no matter what. The connection to indifference or dismissiveness really grew later, especially as it got popular in casual speech and media. So it's kind of evolved in tandem with culture.
So ChatGPT tell me that why do slang expressions evolve quickly?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Slang evolves quickly because it's kind of a living, adaptive language. It forms in youth culture, on the internet, or in social groups, and it spreads fast. Plus, it's often a reaction to new technology, trends, or shifts in society, so it just keeps morphing to stay relevant and fresh.
So ChatGPT, my next question is that how did youth culture shape this world?
Yeah, youth culture really gave whatever its edge. In the late 20th century, especially in the 80s and 90s, young people used it to push back against authority or express apathy, like a shorthand for not caring or being too cool to react. And since it felt rebellious or carefree, it just got picked up and spread like wildfire.
So my next question is that has technology accelerated language change?
Oh, absolutely. Technology's been a huge driver. With social media, texting, memes, all these digital spaces let slang spread rapidly, even globally. So new words and phrases get coined and reshaped in days or weeks instead of taking generations. It's like a turbo boost for language evolution.
Okay, my next question is that why do people act indifferent?
Yeah, that's a really human thing. Often people act indifferent as a kind of self protection, like if they're scared of being hurt, judged, or just overwhelmed. It's a way of keeping control, even if it feels superficial. So sometimes indifference is just a mask for something deeper going on inside.
So ChatGPT is indifference a defense mechanism?
Yeah, it can be. For a lot of people, acting indifferent is a way to avoid feeling vulnerable or to guard against disappointment. So even though it might look like they don't care, it's often a way to keep emotions at a distance and maintain a sense of safety.
So my next question is that can saying whatever protect emotions?
Yeah, it definitely can. By saying whatever, people sometimes create a buffer so they don't have to fully engage with their feelings or expose themselves. It's like a defense mechanism. They keep things superficial so they don't risk being too hurt or too vulnerable.
So my next question is that why do people withdraw from argument?
Yeah, that's a really common response. People often withdraw because they feel overwhelmed or maybe they don't have the words to express themselves in the heat of the moment. Sometimes it's just easier to step back, process, and avoid escalating the conflict. So it's a way to protect themselves or keep things from getting worse.
Okay, ChatGPT, my next question is that does indifference reduce emotional stress?
Yeah, it can, at least temporarily. When people detach or act indifferent, it sometimes creates a sense of distance from the immediate stressor. But it's kind of a double edged sword. It might reduce stress in the moment, but if it sticks around, it can lead to bottled up emotions or avoidant patterns later on.
So ChatGPT, my next question is that is indifference sometimes a sign of maturity?
Yeah, in some ways it can be. I mean, when someone is able to step back and not overreact, it can be a sign that they're emotionally regulated and can choose their responses. That said, it's still a balance because if indifference is just a wall, it's not always mature. It has to come from a conscious choice, not just avoidance.
So my next question is that why do people stop caring in difficult situations?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Sometimes people stop caring in tough situations because they feel helpless. They try and nothing changes, so they just withdraw to protect themselves. Other times it's exhaustion. They've put so much in that they just can't keep fighting. And of course, sometimes it's just a self protective mechanism. They detach to avoid further pain.
So my next question is that can indifference hide deeper feelings?
Oh, definitely. A lot of times, indifference is a mask for deeper emotions like hurt, fear, or disappointment. People might not feel safe expressing those feelings directly, so they keep them hidden behind a wall of, I don't care. So, indifference can be a kind of emotional camouflage.
So my next question is that Is whatever a way to avoid conflict?
Yeah, it often is. When people say whatever, it can kind of shut down a conversation so they don't have to engage in a conflict or explain themselves. It's like a quick exit from an argument or a tricky emotional moment, even if it leaves things hanging.
Okay, ChatGPT, my next question is that how does whatever affect relationships?
Yeah, it can really put a strain on relationships. When one person uses whatever a lot, it can come across as dismissive or uncaring, so the other person might feel unheard or undervalued. Over time, that kind of detachment can lead to a real emotional distance, so it's something that needs to be handled with care.
So, ChatGPT, my next question is that why does hearing whatever hurt some people?
Yeah, that's a big one. Hearing whatever can feel really dismissive because it sounds like your feelings or your concerns don't matter. Especially if you're trying to share something important, that word can make you feel invisible or like you're being dismissed outright. So it really hits hard in those moments.
Okay, ChatGPT, my next question is that can indifference damage communication?
Yeah, absolutely. Indifference can really shut down open communication. When one person doesn't engage or just acts like they don't care, it makes the other person feel unheard or disconnected. And over time, that lack of engagement can just erode trust and understanding. So it really impacts healthy dialogue.
So, ChatGPT, when is emotional distance healthy?
Yeah, emotional distance usually becomes harmful when it stops you from being able to connect or resolve issues. So if you find yourself shutting down conversations, or if both people start to feel more isolated, that's when it really crosses a line and can lead to more permanent disconnection.
Okay, ChatGPT, my next question is that how should we respond when someone says whatever?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it really depends on the context and how you're feeling. If you sense it's a defense, you might pause and ask, "Hey, are you sure everything's okay?" Or if it's just casual, you can keep it light and move on. The key is just staying aware of the tone behind it and responding in a way that keeps communication open and respectful.
Okay, ChatGPT, my next question is that can open communication replace indifference?
Yeah, absolutely. Open communication can really break down that wall of indifference. When both people feel safe to express themselves, it builds understanding, empathy, and trust. So rather than staying stuck in a neutral, indifferent place, opening up really paves the way for conflict resolution and connection.
Okay, ChatGPT, my next question is that why do misunderstandings grow from careless words?
Yeah, that's really common. Careless words can be thrown out without much thought, but they stick because the other person fills in the gaps with their own assumptions. So a small dismissive phrase can grow into a big misunderstanding if both sides aren't really clear. That's why being thoughtful with words really matters.
So, my next question is that does emotional effect strengthen relationships?
Yeah, it really can. When both people are able to express their emotions honestly and feel heard, it builds a deeper sense of trust and connection. So while emotions can be powerful and sometimes tricky, when handled well, they really help people feel closer and more understood.
Okay, ChatGPT, that's a great answer. So, tell me that does emotional effort strengthen relationship and can humor change the meaning of whatever?
Yeah, emotional effort really does strengthen relationships. When both people put in the work to understand each other, it builds a sense of care and security. And absolutely, humor can totally shift whatever. If it's playful or light, it can diffuse tension and make it more about shared experience rather than dismissal.
So, my next question is that is silence sometimes better than indifference?
Yeah, it can be. Silence, when it's intentional and reflective, can give space for emotions to settle or for both people to process. Indifference, though, often feels cold and final. So if silence is just a pause for understanding, it can be really powerful, whereas indifference just shuts things down.
So, my next question is that do different cultures interpret indifference differently?
Yeah, definitely. Different cultures give indifference really different meanings. In some cultures, being reserved or quiet is seen as polite, while in others, it might feel like a personal rejection. So the context and cultural norms really shape how indifference is understood.
So, tell me that why is emotional expression stronger in some societies?
Yeah, that's a really good point. In some societies, emotional expression is actually seen as a sign of authenticity, connection, or trust. For example, in many Latin American or Mediterranean cultures, open emotion is seen as warm and vital. So when people express feelings freely, it actually builds stronger bonds and a sense of community. Yeah, so social pressure can really shape how we feel and express emotions. When we feel pressured to fit in, we might downplay our real feelings or exaggerate them to match what others expect. So we might laugh along, suppress sadness, or even feel more intense emotions just because of the group dynamic.
Okay, my next question is that is indifference connected to fast paced lifestyles?
Yeah, it really can be. In fast paced lifestyles, people often feel rushed or overwhelmed, so they might detach emotionally just to keep up. Indifference can become a kind of self defense, just a way to avoid getting too invested or drained by constant demands.
So my next question is that how do generations differ in communication style?
Yeah, that's a big one. Different generations often have different norms. Like older generations might value face to face or formal communication, while younger ones might rely more on texting or social media. So the speed, tone, and even the platforms we use to communicate can really differ by generation.
So ChatGPT is emotional detachment becoming normal today.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it does seem like it's becoming more common. With the constant flow of information and digital interactions, people can start to disengage emotionally just to cope. Of course, not everyone experiences this, but there's definitely a trend toward more emotional detachment, especially in fast paced or online spaces.
So tell me that how is whatever used online?
Yeah, online, whatever's often used really casually, like in texts or comments, it can come across as dismissive or indifferent, but sometimes it's also used just to brush off a minor thing. People might say it in memes, reply with it to end a conversation, or just use it as a shorthand. So it often depends on the tone of the whole interaction.
Okay, ChatGPT, that's a great answer. So ChatGPT, tell me that do short replies create emotional distance and has texting reduced meaningful conversation?
Yeah, they really can. Short replies often leave a lot unsaid, so they can feel cold or distant. And with texting, we lose a bit of that nuance, like tone of voice, body language. So yeah, it can reduce those deeper, more meaningful conversations if we're not careful.
Okay, my next question is that why do people ghost instead of communicating?
Yeah, that's a big one. A lot of times people ghost because they want to avoid confrontation or because they're not sure how to express their feelings. Sometimes it's out of discomfort or just avoiding a difficult conversation. But yeah, it leaves the other person without closure, which can really hurt.
So tell me that can social media encourage emotional detachment?
Yeah, it really can. Social media often promotes these quick, surface level interactions, so people might share less deeply or disconnect emotionally. Plus, seeing others' curated lives can make people feel like they need to keep up, so they might avoid real emotional investment. So, yeah, it can create
So my next question is that does digital communication reduce empathy?
Yeah, it can. Digital communication often lacks those subtle cues like tone, facial expressions, or body language, so it can be harder to fully understand someone's emotions. Without that rich context, empathy can fall flat, so people might connect less deeply.
So tell me that when should we truly say whatever and more move on?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's okay to say whatever when you genuinely feel neutral, when it's not worth the emotional energy, or when the situation is out of your control. The key is being mindful. If you're just dismissing something important or avoiding a conversation you really need, then that's when you probably need to stay and communicate.
So my next question is that can letting go sometimes be healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. Letting go can be really freeing. When you release attachment to a situation or an expectation, it reduces stress and it gives you space to move forward. So it's not about giving up, it's about choosing peace and making room for what's next.
So my next question is that how do we balance caring and protecting peace? And can indifference help personal growth?
Yeah, that's a delicate balance. Caring means staying emotionally engaged, but protecting peace means knowing when to step back and not let things escalate. Indifference in small doses can help by giving you a breather so you don't overreact. But it's a tool, not a final answer. Real growth happens when you stay self aware, care consciously, and let go when it serves you.
So tell me that how can people replace indifference with understanding?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really starts with curiosity, taking a moment to ask how the other person feels or why they're acting a certain way. Practicing active listening, really reflecting back what you hear helps. And when you express your own emotions honestly, it creates a space where understanding can grow.
So viewers, this is my chat GPT. Hope so you like it. Meet you in the next video. Pakistan Zindabad.